to be making a floral arrangement for my stepdaughter's wedding using florals that I bought used off of Facebook Marketplace. I'm repurposing them from previous arrangements and bouquets because, let's face it, weddings are expensive and I want to save money. I'm also going to be using a plate charger and foam from Dollar Tree. These arrangements are going to sit on elevated pedestals, so they can sit on this flat plate charger. The silver color goes with her theme, and they were only $1.25 plus tax. I also got the block of floral foam from there as well. I've removed the floral foam from the plastic wrap, and now I am going to use something called E6000, and this is a craft adhesive. It comes in a tube. You can get it from Amazon or Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to trace around the edges on the outside, so I'm going to make a big square with that. And it's okay if I get it kind of close to the edge and it comes out a little bit, because we're not going to see anything with this foam. So if it seeps out, we're okay. And then I'm going to go through the center of this. I'm going to make the shape of an X, because I want to make sure that this truly does adhere very well to the plate. The last thing I want is for some flowers to come off during the middle of the ceremony if somebody accidentally knocks into it. Once that adhesive is firmly on there, I am going to flip this over now, and we are going to place it down on the plate and push down a little bit, give it a little pressure to make sure it stays firm. Now I'm going to let this sit for 24 hours to make sure that it cures nicely. I do not go around the outside with any hot glue because that will actually melt this foam, so the E6000 is good enough. All right, it's now the next day, and you can see that that foam block is securely on there, so we can start adding in our florals. I have a lot of different florals that I'm going to be using. I have some eucalyptus that I've actually purchased, and then those were bundles I got from Facebook Marketplace. They were from Hobby Lobby. Someone was getting rid of them. I have quite a bit of those. And then I also have these foam roses here. Now these are Ling's Moments, but you can also get foam roses like this off of places like Amazon. We are going with a theme of white and light cream and a little hint of beige. So those are the white roses. Other florals I had that came with that are some other rosebuds. We really did have quite a bit of mix of different florals and greenery we bought from everywhere. So what I did was took kind of everything apart and separate it all out. Now I knew I needed to make 4 arrangements of this, and I picked out the florals I was going to use. So then I divided it up into 4 groups. That way I have an even number of each type to use, like those beautiful hydrangeas. I love those. They turned out so pretty in this. And then this was some more greenery that I had purchased from Michael's. I only used half of this for each arrangement. That added just a little bit of height. I wanted to use a hydrangea as the center point, so I put this in first. This is going to determine the overall height of the arrangement. So I dipped it into the hot glue pot that I have off to the side. Very careful not to burn myself, as I tend to do. And then I pushed that in, and everything else is going to be based off of the final height for this. And there we go. Now I'm taking the eucalyptus bush I got from Michael's, and I am cutting that into its 7 different pieces. I wish there were an 8th on here, but there was only 7. This is going to fill out the bottom of our arrangement, but before I do that, I want to put in a piece of the other white floral. It's not a hydrangea. I honestly don't know what it's called. It's pretty. But I put that on the plate at the bottom, and I want it to hang over the outside of the plate just a little bit. So I'm going to put one into each of the corners down at the bottom. What I'm trying to do is set the overall shape for this. So if you can think of this as kind of a bowl but turned upside down, that is the kind of rounded shape that we're going for, like half a circle. So I put one in each of the corners, kind of pushing it in there. Because it's going in on a corner, I had to push a little bit harder. And now I'm going to put in one of the 2 pieces that came out of that bouquet that I had snipped apart from Hobby Lobby. There were 2 of these that I had in there, and I'm cutting off the bottom just a little bit because I need to have this go into the arrangement a little bit further. So we're going to put one on either side of this. Dip it in the glue pot. I'm going to go on either side of the hydrangea. So this one is going to go over on the left and push it down in there. Now I don't want them to stick up too high, so I kind of do push it down in there quite a bit, but it does stay nice and secure. And then I kind of separate out the pieces. We want this interwoven throughout. We don't want it to look like it's just jammed in there. Everything else is going to be woven around it with the florals coming out, so it'll look very natural. Then I trimmed the one for the right, and that is going to go on to the right side once I dip it in the glue there. And there, pushing it in, making sure that I have the same height as I did on the either side. We want it to look even, not symmetrical, but even. And here's where we are at so far with what we've put in. Now I'm going to take some of the smaller stems and trim down the bottom of those to make sure that it's short enough that it's going to follow the sight line of the arrangement. And then we're going to dip that in our glue pot. You can also use a glue gun and just apply it directly onto the stems. Honestly, that's what I do most of the time. Okay, and there goes that beautiful, pretty hydrangea. And make sure I push it in really nice and good. And I want it to hit kind of like the midpoint between the top and the bottom. So you see it's following that gentle curve. We want everything to look gentle and organic, nothing sharp, nothing forced. And this one's going to go on the opposite side then of that other hydrangea, kind of working on either sides. It does make it a little bit more difficult when you have limited materials like we did when we bought things used from Facebook Marketplace. It was a bit more limiting, but it was definitely a money saver. So I was glad that we were able to do some cost cutting savings there, and they look just as beautiful as they had if I'd bought them from a store. Next, I'm going to add in one of these foam flowers. Now, these kind of came in white and then a little off-white and more of a beige. So I want to sprinkle these throughout here. But these foam flowers, they're very lightweight, but they really are beautiful. At first, I was a little bit skeptical. I didn't want it to look cheap, but they really turned out very pretty. And then I'm going to add in some more hydrangea-type florals. Going then now a little bit further down. I don't want everything to be at the exact same spot on all sides of the arrangement. I kind of want to space it out because this needs to look organic and natural. So I pushed that one in, and there we go. It's found a new home. What are we going to add in next? This is one of the smaller blooms. So we're putting that in here to fill it out. We want a mix of larger and smaller. This is going to basically take up space between the larger blooms. We don't want to see any of the floral foam, obviously, but I also really want to avoid having to use any Spanish moss on top of the floral foam because I hate that stuff. It's disgusting and it smells. But that's just my personal preference. Now we're going to start adding some of that snipped greenery to the bottom. I'm trying to add 2 pieces on every block. Now I only had 7 pieces of this, so the last piece I ended up kind of putting in the center because it was a larger piece. I saved that, but I'm having this stick out over the plate just about an inch or 2, right? It's not sticking super far out, but I really don't want to see all of the plate, but it is fine that we are seeing some of the plate. And I go around, I'm just adding that all on the bottom. Now we could have added this more up top as well, but the stems on these were kind of short, a little disappointingly short to be honest, but that's okay because it did help me cover up everything along the bottom. There we go. And of course you want to separate your pieces of greenery out as well. You want it to take up as much space as it can, but you also want it to look airy, not too squished, not too condensed. And here's where we are at right now. You can see it is starting to fill out. We've got stuff at the top, stuff at the bottom, but now we want to start working around filling out the spaces between, kind of in the middle. So this is a smaller piece that came out of that mixed greenery bush from Hobby Lobby. We're going to add that in. It adds a bit more visual interest. It doesn't take up a lot of space either. And then we have this, I guess it's large eucalyptus. That's going to poke out as well. We really are only going to see the greenery that's kind of coming out at the top portion of it. We're not seeing a whole lot of it kind of mixed in there, but it is helping to take up and add some volumes, taking up some space in there, which is what we want. Then I rotated the arrangement and I added some more of that on the other sides as well, adding in another piece. Not necessarily being symmetrical, but again, trying to go for balance. When I kind of put some on one side, I want to make sure that I have enough to put on the other. And push that right in there. For these blocks coming from Dollar Tree, I really do like this foam. There's nothing wrong with it, to be honest. It's a good cost-saving measure. And then we're going to add in another one as well. There were quite a bit of stems on this bush, but I only used half of it for this. I didn't want it to come out too much. My stepdaughter's colors are, it's basically eucalyptus green. So that's why I had a lot of different various shades of green in there. She really likes that color. Those are going to go in her bridal bouquet as well. I should probably do another video on making that bouquet too. Now it's time for another one of those large foam flowers. The stems on these aren't very long, so I can put in just a little bit of the stem into the greenery. But there's enough support there where I wasn't too worried about it. So now I'm just rotating the arrangement around, looking for where I have openings and picking different kinds of florals to put in. So now I'm going to put in a nice, very pretty rose. Now this is not one of the foam roses. This was one of the nicer silk roses. It was very large, more voluminous, and a little off-white, not the bright white. But I put that in there as well, and I had it facing up more toward the top because the stem on this was longer. The one lament about buying the used florals is that they've already been snipped, so you really have to work with the length that they already are at. Yeah, you can make them shorter, but you can't make them longer unless you glued them or somehow attach them to a longer stem, which you could do. So then I took some of those pretty lamb's ears that came from that mixed greenery bush from Hobby Lobby. Those are really pretty. I got a lot of those. And I added a couple of those into this arrangement, but I wanted one kind of looking upward more a little bit. And looking where else on the other side I was going to work with. It's now time to put in one on the other side. Surprise, surprise. Like I said before, going for balance. And push that in right on the same side. There we go. They don't have to both point up at the same direction. I kind of had them in similar positions, but not exact. Now this is the white or the off-white foam flower again that I'm putting in just a little bit of the tip. So these didn't really go all the way up at the top. These were kind of used a lot more for the middle or lower portion of the arrangements. I really do like those. The weight is just, they're so pretty and they hardly weigh anything. It was fantastic. I'm going to speed this up a little bit for you. I added in a third piece of the lamb's ear then in that opening that I had there, and that's going to fill that in really nicely. Now this is at a point that's a little bit lower than the others, and that's okay. It's what I want. Now I'm going to start adding in a lot of those white foam roses. I saw like packs of 50 of these on Amazon. I got these, like I said, from Facebook Marketplace, but they end up being very nice. Now, they do come with, some of them have leaves that you can put on there, but it only comes with maybe about 10 leaves. They don't all have leaves. But that's okay, because we already have so much greenery in here that we really didn't need a lot of that. Now I'm going to start to speed up the video here because you're starting to get the point of what we're doing. We're keeping the domed shape, the half circle kind of feeling throughout, going within a mix of different florals. Now you could decide to put all florals of one kind in first and then all of another kind in next. but I like to kind of mix it up and just go little by little, looking for where I have openings. I want to make sure that I don't have 2 or 3 of the same kind of flower next to each other. I don't want it to look like there's a whole bunch of this on one side or all grouped together. It needs to be very spread out. So I'm putting in a mix of shorter ones. I'm finding some of the taller sprigs, and I'm adding more to the top of there, adding some different height popping out. And then more lamb's ear, because who doesn't love a good lamb's ear? Well, not the lamb if they're taking your ear. Just kidding. All right. Then these smaller hydrangea-esque blooms. There were a couple of those. I really wish I had more of those. I would have liked to have added in some more of those. But again, we work with what you've got. There's no shame in that game. There we go. Now that's one of the foam roses that did have some leaves attached. That was very nice. And moving things around. I will say you are going to notice that there are some very small glue strings. I call it glue snot. But as you're working with the hot glue, it drips over. It kind of brings a string. So when you're done with your final arrangement, just give it a real good looking over. And you can also maybe use a blow dryer to kind of blow through there, see if you see any strings hanging, and just kind of pull them off gently. I love how the more I go through, it's becoming fuller and fuller. Now this is the second one I had done. You can see the first one I had finished was sitting right behind it. And that kind of gave me the guide because I needed to see what was the overall height of this. I didn't want this one to be taller. I didn't want it to be shorter. It had to be just right. Then I realized I had a couple of these little pom-pom shaped flowers that I hadn't used yet. So I trimmed a couple of those off. That kind of went like in the halfway point. The stem was a little longer, which worked out well because I needed something to kind of fill in that area. I didn't want all the white roses to be strictly down at the bottom. I was trying to spread those throughout, high and low, as much as I could. Now I'm going to speed up the rest of this even more. If you want to go back while you're watching this, if you're doing something similar yourself, you're welcome to do that. Just trying to fill in now all the different gaps. I don't want to see any of my green foam. I don't want to see any areas where it looks like there's something missing. And then you can also, at the end, kind of start moving your florals around. They are in there in the foam, but some of them have more bendable stems, so you can kind of change the angle that they're at. You can kind of mix it around. If two things are next to each other that they're too similar, you can kind of spread them around. And almost finishing up there, adding more of those white roses. There we go, putting that in. I love the roses that had the greenery already attached. That really helped to fill in some of the gaps. And here you can see our arrangement is all finished. It is altar ready. I'm going to go through and give it once more a little check. Make sure check for glue strings. Of course, I always find the glue strings. No gaps. Everything looks nice and even. And it is all set for her wedding. We can't wait. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on social media and shop at sweetariadecor.com.